Securek. For 6 minutes, please, Damien.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. Mr. Robertson, I have been astounded as I see some of the rallies and whatnot that you referenced in your opening remarks, where there's the glorification of terror on Canadian streets, and something that has been highlighted, and especially as we're dealing with a study on freedom of expression, because of course as Canadians we are guaranteed and through the Charter the constitutionally assured right of freedom of expression, but to ensure that that does not include the glorification of a genocide, of terrorism like we have seen. Is it your opinion that there are mechanisms, criminal code and otherwise, that exist currently in Canada that are not being properly enforced to ensure that these things don't happen on Canadian streets?
Thank you for your question. It is the position of B'nai B'rith Canada that the unfortunate rise in anti-Semitism and the recent events such as protests that glorify and celebrate acts of terror that we have seen on our streets present us with the opportunity to re-examine the provisions of the criminal code, which have been designed to prevent terrorism. These criminal code provisions need to be amended to ensure that the groups which we are listing as terrorist entities are not celebrated and glorified on Canadian streets. So yes, we do have provisions designed to prevent terrorism in its occurrence here in Canada, but we need to amend those to acknowledge the realities which we are currently seeing on Canadian streets, which is the display of the symbols of listed terror entities in the occurrence of rallies and vigils whose sole intent is to glorify the actions of terrorists. So the existing legislation does not presently encapsulate the events that we're seeing, and it needs to be amended in order to respond to the problematic conduct which we are witnessing on our streets, which is actually making a mockery of our current efforts to combat terrorism.
I appreciate that, and I think that one of the things, and I've had many constituents that have reached out to me saying, how is this allowed to happen? Are there not anti-hate speech provisions that currently exist? Is there not criminal code charges that could be levied against individuals, the organizers of these sorts of rallies that clearly are hateful and calling for, in some cases, genocide, etc. So are you aware of whether or not charges have in fact been levied, been brought against any of the organizers or groups that, including some of which were organizations that were up until just recently allowed to operate legally in Canada, but just changed to be a terrorist organization? Are you aware of any of the current provisions that have led to charges that we could point to?
We are aware of arrests that have been made, specifically in reference to the leaders of those, the group that you reference. We are also aware of charges being laid against several individuals under Section 319 of the Criminal Code, which is Canada's hate crime provisions. However, I think that the devolving situation is evidence that what has been done and the charges that have been laid are insufficient to handle the situation that is presently inflicting our country. So whether or not it's through the creation of additional criminal code measures, or whether or not it's through the examination of additional measures that will aid in the use of the currently existing measures, something needs to be done. And that's why this study in this committee's role is so integral. Something more needs to occur, and it's up to our parliamentarians to decide what is best in order to combat the rising levels of hate and the current unrest and division that are plaguing our streets.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm curious. There is any civil society. There's a social contract, and that's a concept that is often taught in high school social studies classes and in universities across Canada. But there's this tension, right? The freedom, but also the responsibility. I'm wondering if in the last minute or so you could just unpack a little bit of what that looks like for us as parliamentarians, members of the Heritage Committee studying freedom of expression, what that tension should look like to ensure that freedom of expression is protected while also ensuring that Canadians are also protected.
I think that it comes down to reasonable limitations. Everyone should have the right to protest. Everyone should have the right to voice our opinion. That's made clear in our charter, and our charter jurisprudence has protected those rights. However, the glorification of listed terror entities, the promotion of caustic views that discriminate against and promote hate against other minorities, that seems to run afoul of the idea of what is reasonable within our democratic society and would seem to violate the social contract which you have referenced.
Thank you very much. You have 13 seconds.
I would simply add this could be expanded as well to ensure that Canadians have the right to freedom of religion and what that looks like in terms of the larger context. But since I'm out of time, maybe you'll have a chance to expand on that
Thank you very
as the
much.
discussion goes on.